Hello there, I'm Isabel, and today I'll be making a Pikmin Fall Diorama. Hold on, let me fix that. Before starting, I made a sketch to help figure out the elements I wanted to include, such as a pumpkin, a few leaves and mushrooms, and the Pikmins, of course. Now, let's get started. I traced a few different leaf shapes on a piece of paper, cut them out, then painted each leaf with acrylic paint, and used a brown pencil to add a few veins. Next, I traced a circle on a foam core board and cut out the shape to use as the base. I glued a few scrap pieces of XPS foam. I want a pumpkin that I'll make later on to sit a bit higher than the moss. Speaking of moss, I made this fake moss using a shredded sponge that I mixed with a bit of green paint. I'll hot glue the moss all around the base. I'll also add one of the leaf I made earlier and cover the rest of the base in moss. Then I'll go over it with a bit of paint to make it more uniform because I had mixed in some leftover moss from my piranha plant project and the color was a bit bright. I'll set that aside to dry and start working on the rock Pikmin. I'll use this pack of Sculpey Primo. The color is called Graphite Pearl. I got it for last year's Pikmin video but ended up not using it. I made a ball of foil, covered it in clay, and used an X-Acto blade to cut off chunks of clay until I achieve a decent rock Pikmin shape. I may be biased because rock Pikmins are my favorite types of Pikmins, but I think they're the easiest to sculpt because they're literally a chunk of rock. I still try my best to make the cut as accurate as possible by looking at references, but I mean, if it looks like a chunky rock, it's all good. I added a few lines with a silicone tool and used a stiff paintbrush to add texture to the clay. To make the legs and feet, I rolled a tiny coil of clay and carefully cut out 2 little triangles. I made a second one, and then made the legs in the exact same way but a bit shorter. I'll attach all the limbs to our little rock friend. For the antenna, I threaded a piece of wire through a cone of clay and attached it to the body. I also made 2 little white ovals for the eyes. And in the oven, Rocky goes. I sketched the pupils with a pencil first, then painted over it with a ball tool. I'll make the flower for the antenna with a small ball of air-dry clay that I painted yellow. I painted a piece of paper purple, cut out petals, then I carefully glued the petals together with regular white glue. Next, I glued the yellow center to the flower and made this green part that connects the flower to the antenna, and then glued the flower on the rock Pikmin. I'll finish him off with a coat of gloss varnish on each eyes and our little rock friend is complete. So let's make the blue Pikmin. Last year I made a Pikmin diorama using Sculpey 3 clay and this is all I have left. I'll start with a little ball of foil, cover that in clay, then made a second little ball of foil and covered it in clay. I'll add a wire and connect the 2 pieces together, then gently blend the clay with a ball tool. Let's add the antenna and blend it in. I'll attach the arms, blend it in, and then bend them a bit in the shape I want them. Blue looks like it's about to drop a rap album, but that's a diorama for another day. With the arms in the correct position, I'll add the legs and blend those in. Carve a tiny mouth with a ball tool. Now I'm gonna bake it because it will be easier to sand the head without the eyes on. Once it had cooled down, I gave it a nice sand, added the eyes and baked it again. I painted the body and mouth, then made black dots for the pupils. I painted a piece of paper green, cut out 2 leaf shapes, added a bit of glue around the edges but not at the bottom. Then sandwiched the 2 leaves together, drew some veins on each side, trimmed the edges a bit, and colored the rim with paint. When that was dry, I glued it to the antenna. Blue is complete and ready to climb a pumpkin, so let's make the pumpkin. I made a big ball from an entire pack of air-dry clay, then pressed lines all around the ball with a rib tool, as if I was dividing a cake. Cake. I use my ribbon tool to remove some clay around the lines so it looks less like a basketball and more like a pumpkin. Once I was happy with the shape, I flipped it over and carved a hole to empty the pumpkin and make it hollow. I tried to keep the sides at about ½ inch thick so the clay will still hold its shape. Then flipped it over again to add the stem. I added a bit of texture to make it look more realistic. Once I was happy with the stem, I cut out the top and removed it. I'll smooth out the edges a bit and set it aside to dry. That will take a couple of days, so in the meanwhile, I'll make the wing pigment. I combined a bit of red and white clay to make pink and then followed the same steps I did for the blue pigment, except the proportions are a bit different. The wing pigment will be lifting the pumpkin stem in the air, so I'll position the arms to fit around the stem. The body is complete. Let's take a break and eat a snack. Sorry, it's rude to speak with your mouth full, but I'm gonna use a plastic tray of this Oreo package to make pigment. I cut out 2 wing shapes and then used my Posca pen to draw the veins. But that looked like crap. So I tried using a white pencil, but that did nothing. So I ended up using white acrylic paint and that did the job. I'll stick the wings in the body, but I'll make sure to remove them before baking the clay because otherwise the plastic would melt. Then I mixed a bit of blue and white clay and made 2 eyes. I poked 2 holes in the head, placed the eyes, and off to the oven it goes. Once it had cooled down, I'll give it a nice sand. Then I painted the body pink and the eyes blue. I also added a highlight on each eye. Then stuck the wings back on. I'll add the leaf and finish it off with a coat of gloss varnish. I'll make the red pigment next. I'll follow the same step as the blue pigment, but this time I'll add an adorable little pointy nose. Red will be sitting on top of a mushroom, so I'll pose its arm and leg accordingly and then bake it again. So while in the oven, Red fell over and one of its foot and both arms are crooked, so I'll need to cut them off. Then I sanded the body and remade the limbs. I ran out of red clay, so pink clay it is. I added the eyes, then in the oven it goes for a second bake. Once it had cooled down, I repeated the same step as the blue Pikmin, but you know, in red. And last but not least, let's make the yellow Pikmin. Because the yellow Pikmin will be standing up, I made a wire armature, bulked it up with foil, then covered it in clay. I'll add its adorable pointy ears and repeated the same step as I did for the other Pikmins. Yellow is complete, and by now the pumpkin is all dried, so I'll paint that real quick. And it's time to assemble the diorama. I'll start by placing a few leaves here and there, then added the pumpkin, placed the rock Pikmin, glued the blue Pikmin on the edge of the pumpkin. Next, I'll add the wing Pikmin on the top of the stem. I'll glue red to the mushroom and then glue the mushroom to the base. Glued this acorn I made off camera in yellow's arm, then on the base it goes. Then I'll add this mushroom that I also made off camera. And that's it. Let's move on to the glamour shots. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you next time.